Have you ever thought about how to age with dignity while maintaining your independence? In today's video, we share the inspiring story of Grandpa Juan, a 70-year-old man who discovered a unique way to live comfortably without resorting to a nursing home. His experience reflects the challenges many older adults face, from family dependency to the exhausting demands of daily routines. Through his connection with a young couple, we highlight how unexpected relationships can provide companionship and support, fostering a warm and welcoming environment. By the end of this video, you will explore creative ideas for improving life in old age, practical recommendations, and the strength of emotional bonds. Don't miss it. This story could change your perspective on aging. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue the conversation. Your support allows us to keep spreading valuable lessons. Part 1: The Story of Don Pedro. At 70, Don Pedro found himself deeply reflecting on the different ways of life he had encountered throughout his existence. He had tried living with his children, relying on a caregiver, and even spending some time in a retirement home. However, each of these experiences left him with a sense of emptiness and a desire to find something more fulfilling in this final stage of his life. After a period of deep reflection, and by chance, he discovered a way of life that truly connected him to himself, offering the peace and independence he had longed for. He embraced this new path with enthusiasm and has continued it to this day, bringing him relief and satisfaction. This year, I reached 70 years old, and I remember the moments leading up to my 75th birthday when I went through serious health difficulties that ultimately separated me from this world. When my dear wife was still by my side, I felt total security. We made a mutual commitment to always support and care for each other, especially during times of illness. Our hospital visits, shared, were always filled with laughter and camaraderie, turning even the toughest moments into something we could face together. However, when my wife passed away, everything took a radical turn. Suddenly, the mere idea of going to the hospital became an overwhelming burden, enveloping me in a sense of fear and anxiety. As time passed and my health deteriorated, I was forced to drag my tired body to the hospital, facing endless waits that left me exhausted. After each consultation, I would collapse into bed, completely drained, feeling like a shadow of what I had once been. Although I have a son and a daughter who love me dearly, both are consumed by the demands of their own lives. During my hospital stays, I decided not to ask for their help, as I couldn't bear the thought of being a burden to them. This attitude, born out of love and concern for their well-being, ironically ended up creating a situation where, despite my good intentions, my children ended up providing me with more care than I would have wanted. It was during a common trip to the market when destiny surprised me again. I tripped and fell, leading to an unexpected hospitalization. The doctor told me I would need at least 6 months to recover. After that, my children suggested a plan, alternating between staying at my son's house and my daughter's, spending 3 months at each. However, during these stays, I couldn't help but feel like an intruder in their lives. There is a saying that resonates strongly with me: a father's house will always be the children's home, but the children's home will never be a father's. No matter how much they tried to make me feel welcome, I felt the weight of that truth deep in my soul, wishing to find a place where I truly belonged, a space that gave me the peace of feeling at home. In this new stage of his life, Grandpa Juan has found a refuge, a place where he can maintain his dignity while enjoying the independence he cherishes. It's not just a roof over his head, it's a renewed freedom that nourishes his soul, reminding him that even in the later years, it is still possible to build a life full of joy and authentic connections. Spending the last few months at my children's houses has been an enlightening experience that has left a deep sense of loneliness in my heart. Although I am grateful for their generosity and the fact that I have a place to live, I can't help but feel that, no matter how welcoming and well-maintained their homes are, they will never truly be mine. Every day, I try to convince myself that having a place to rest and eat is enough, but the emotional disconnection I feel with my children constantly reminds me that something essential is missing. Each meal seems to be marked by a shadow as I find myself eating alone in my room, while my children gather, talking and laughing in an environment that becomes increasingly alien to me. Every moment at the table highlights the loneliness I feel, as if a new pain arrives with each bite. Their suggestion, said lightly, that I prepare my own meals sounds more like disdain than a kind offer. I can't help but perceive their indifference. They see me as a figure from the past, someone who carries the weight of the years and, perhaps in their eyes, someone outdated and out of place in a rapidly advancing world. As I try to suppress these feelings, the tension of our conversations hurts deeper than any physical discomfort. I am aware that my thoughts may seem out of place and that sometimes my words come out in a disordered way, but I cannot help but think about how different things were when they were young. Life seemed easier, filled with laughter and mutual understanding. Now, facing the complicated process of aging, I find myself struggling with their distant and cold attitude, making me feel invisible within my own family. If these stories are motivating to you and inspire action, would appreciate it if you commented 9. If not, please write 0. Your opinion is very important to us. Thank you for taking the time to read us. After 6 long months living in my children's houses, I felt an irrepressible urge to return to my own home, a place that still holds the traces of a life I once deeply valued. It was at that moment that I truly understood the saying, "Not everything that shines is gold." My home, however small, represents my memories, my history, and a desire to regain the independence I long for. However, the recent injury to my leg serves as a painful reminder of my limitations, keeping me in constant suffering and restricting my ability to move, making me acutely aware of how vulnerable I am. Living alone comes with its own set of exhausting challenges, the most pressing being the daily routine of grocery shopping. Every trip to the market feels like a monumental challenge, and when I finally return home, my legs burn with pain, and I am drenched in cold sweat, a reflection of my fragility. This is not the life I had dreamed of at this stage in my life. With great regret, I found myself needing to hire a caregiver, which turned out to be a heavy blow to my already tight finances. The monthly salary of 800 yuan is hard to bear, especially since my pension is barely enough. I often feel guilty for placing an economic burden on my children, depending on their limited support of only 110 yuan per month to cover this essential help. It is a clear reminder of how complicated facing the difficulties of aging can be when resources are scarce. While I wish I could enjoy nutritious foods that are more accessible in wealthier households, I have learned to accept my principle: feeling satisfied is what matters. I cannot justify wasting money on food, especially when my tight budget dictates a different reality. This modest lifestyle directly impacts the permanence of my caregiver. Families who can afford caregivers create comfortable and pleasant environments with nutritious meals that nourish both body and spirit. Unfortunately, caregivers who come to my home tend to leave after a few days, unable to adapt to what they consider minimal portions. They comment that the meals are like rabbit food, too small to give them the energy they need to face their demanding work. As if that weren't disheartening enough, even the agencies that provide caregivers are reluctant to send someone to me, thinking that the conditions here would not allow for lasting satisfaction. In the end, my heart is weighed down by the understanding that I may need to consider options I had tried to avoid. The need for continuous assistance in my home leads me to think about moving to a nursing home, an option that seems like just another loss in a long chain of them. I want to experience a sense of connection and welcome, but the idea of asking my son to support me through this change deeply pains me. It is a painful acceptance of the separation that has arisen between us, a clear reminder that the process of aging often leads us to destinations we never wished to reach. The nursing home I visited, to be honest, was far from what one would expect from a comfortable and well-prepared place for the years ahead. Although it was affordable, it was also in poor condition and lacked many of the amenities that would have improved the quality of life. However, despite these shortcomings, it was within my pension's reach, which was a great relief. After moving there, I felt at ease knowing that my children would no longer have to bear the expense of a caregiver. Thinking about that gave me some comfort, knowing that I was easing, even if just a little, their financial burden. I decided to stay there for the rest of my life, fully aware of the difficulties they faced in their daily lives. I wanted to contribute in some way to lighten their load. However, as an independent person, I found it difficult to adapt to the strict collective routine, almost military-like, that governed the nursing home. Sometimes I felt suffocated, and although I tried to adapt, I struggled to meet the demands of the environment. The days passed slowly, and after a month of feeling out of place and without freedom, I decided to leave the nursing home. Returning home was like inhaling renewed air, and I resumed my solitary life, which in many ways made me feel that I was regaining my autonomy. Fortunately, just as I was starting to adapt to my own space again, an online food shopping service became available in my area. With this new option, I asked my daughter to place the grocery order for me online. Every day, the products could be picked up at a tiny store located at the entrance of my residential complex, which turned out to be a real relief. It was no longer necessary to travel long distances, and the sense of relief was evident. My legs stopped hurting as much, which allowed me to regain some normalcy in my life. The young couple that managed the store was incredibly kind. They noticed my mobility problems and were always willing to help, taking my purchases to the elevator. Over time, as our interactions became more frequent, a genuine friendship developed between us. Their kindness and empathy filled my days with joy, and I deeply appreciated the moments we shared. This pleasant routine lasted for half a year, and although I felt at peace with my life, I couldn't help but reflect on the reality that so many people face. As I got older, I began to notice how my physical strength gradually declined. This brought with it a troubling concern about the challenges associated with aging. I understood that sooner or later, the time would come when it would no longer be possible to live independently, and the prospect of needing help from others to get by was unsettling. One day, while walking to the small shop to pick up my usual things, I came across a young couple arguing. I quietly stopped by their side, feeling my heart shrink as I listened to their conversation, which exposed the tensions caused by their financial struggles. The wife, clearly concerned about their child, was fervently defending her decision to spend more than €100 of their limited income to buy durian for him. It was painful to witness her distress. The husband, anxious about their financial situation, emphasized that they couldn't afford such luxuries, especially given how tight things were. The wife responded, pointing out that their child had longed for this rare fruit, and occasionally indulging him wasn't an unnecessary expense. Still, he reminded her of the importance of managing their resources wisely, questioning what they would do if they ran out of money and couldn't pay their child's school fees. As I stood there, I was filled with deep empathy for them. Their conversation was a powerful reminder of the difficulties so many families face, and it especially touched on my own concerns about what lies ahead. The connection between our struggles felt implicit, highlighting the fragile balance between what we desire and what we need, between moments of happiness and the ongoing fight to get by. As I listened to their story, a brilliant idea came to me, as if a light had been switched on in a dark room. The thought was so clear and warm that I could hardly conceal my emotion. I decided to approach the young couple, who had shown me such kindness and support, and present them with an offer I thought would be beneficial for all. I offered them €800 per month if they came to my home every day to do some basic tasks, washing clothes, tidying up, and preparing 2 simple meals. I assured them that this arrangement meant that, although the couple would work in my home every day, it wouldn't demand a significant amount of their time or effort. When I presented the proposal, I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes, a mix of shyness and surprise. They hesitated, mentioning that they saw no reason to accept money from someone they considered a friend. It was emotional to witness their reluctance, but I insisted, emphasizing that I genuinely wanted to support them financially. After several delicate attempts to persuade them, they finally accepted. I noticed how their initial doubts gave way to acceptance, as if they understood that what I was offering was a genuine opportunity, an act of good intention. In reality, giving them 200,000 yuan per month represented only a small part of what it would cost to hire a caregiver or move into a retirement home. This understanding filled me with gratitude. It wasn't just a practical alternative, but also a great advantage for me, as it allowed me to maintain my autonomy while providing them with a stable income. Every day, they took the time to come to my house, infusing vitality and energy into my home as they cooked and organized. Living alone often felt lonely, but their company turned my days into something more lively and fulfilling. The tasks were simple for them, and I found joy in the routine we shared. Over the years, this young couple has become deeply integrated into my life. We have created a bond that goes beyond the employer-employee relationship, developing into a friendship that truly moves me. Their commitment and careful attention have impressed me deeply. Despite how close we have become, at 80 years old, I never imagined I could experience so much well-being and companionship without relying on external assistance or burdening my children. Knowing that I can enjoy my golden years peacefully, without fearing loneliness or the label of living in a retirement home, fills me with immense happiness. The genuine support I receive for just €800 a month is not merely a business transaction, it is a true source of joy that has transformed my life in ways I never imagined. I made a sincere commitment to the couple who have shown me so much generosity and empathy over the past few years. If they continued to care for me with the same dedication, I would offer them an additional reward of €3,600. The young couple expressed immense gratitude, their eyes shone with awe and happiness as they conveyed how important that sum was to them. They said it could completely change their destiny, providing them with the stability they had longed for. Their sincere words touched my heart deeply. They added that if they had the fortune of meeting more elderly people with good hearts, they would treat them with even greater care. This sentiment filled me with a renewed warmth and hope. This positive arrangement gave me a new sense of stability in my golden years, as if the clouds of doubt began to dissipate, letting the rays of the sun shine through. If these stories inspire you and encourage you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your opinion is greatly valued. Thank you for taking the time. Part 2. In the next chapter of our story, we will explore the emotional experience of Don Jose, an 80-year-old man who has managed to overcome the challenges of his later years with dignity and well-being, despite the financial difficulties that arose after losing his independence. Many elderly adults experience a deep fear of losing their independence, and understandably so. The prospect of having to depend on others for essential needs can be an overwhelming burden, as if one is losing the essence of life itself. This battle is particularly painful for people like Don Jose, who face financial struggles. For him, ensuring a peaceful life in his retirement years is not just a desire, but a terrifying burden that constantly accompanies him. Let me tell you a little about myself. My name is Don Jose, and today I proudly celebrate my 80th birthday. 3 years ago, my beloved wife left this world after a long and exhausting battle with illness. Since that sad moment, I have been facing life alone. Although I have a daughter, her path has been filled with obstacles and complications. My son-in-law, who I expected to be a source of support, has proven to be quite unreliable. His low salary and abusive attitude toward my daughter have tarnished the family atmosphere, leaving me with a feeling of total helplessness. My daughter, now in her late 50s, has never had a day truly focused on her own well-being. Instead, she tirelessly gives herself to her husband and son, with her life limited to the repetitive cycles of going to work and providing care. The love that was once supposed to be her support has turned into a source of suffering, as my son-in-law's ruthless attitude prevents her from breaking free. It deeply pains me to see my daughter suffering because of her husband, who, despite lacking many qualities, has a manipulative skill that keeps her trapped by his side. Every time my son-in-law dares to mention his desire for a divorce, he resorts to violence to silence her, extinguishing any hope she might have had of being free. The aggression he exerts comes from a terrifying awareness that, in our home, she is completely unprotected. In our house, aside from me, an older man who no longer has the strength to intervene, there is no other man who can support her. This lack of presence leaves my daughter exposed to his constant harassment, because he knows he can act without fear of being stopped. My grandson, now an adult in his 20s, has been raised in an environment of fear and hostility, tragically stifling his ability to protect his mother. Seeing my daughter suffer fills me with sorrow. She lacks the ability to defend herself, and I feel utterly powerless to offer her the support she so desperately needs. In my wife's life, we provided mutual support, and together we faced the challenges that life presented us. However, since she passed, the weight of life has become so great that I can no longer carry it alone. Last year, a severe stroke left me unable to move the right side of my body. After a long and difficult rehabilitation, I had to face the reality of paralysis. This truth overwhelmed me like a heavy fog, plunging me into numerous moments of despair and anger at an unjust fate. I spent days crying, battling the overwhelming sense of injustice in my situation. My aspirations for independence vanished even further, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. Each tear that fell was a lament not only for the abilities I had lost but also for the life I had dreamed for my family, a life full of love, respect, and stability. Amid that fragility, I felt an impulse to regain my position as someone who cares, provides, and is a pillar of strength for my daughter. I find myself in a difficult circumstance, one that deeply affects both my heart and my spirit. Looking back and thinking about my life, I realize I don't have children who can support me in my final years, nor do I have the financial resources to cover the costs of eldercare services that many of my contemporaries rely on. My pension, a ridiculous amount of €250 per month, feels like a drop in the ocean when I face the harsh reality of aging. To make matters worse, my savings barely exceed €800, a figure that seems almost irrelevant given the constant rise in expenses. With such limited resources, the idea of moving to a retirement home or hiring a caregiver seems beyond my reach, an unattainable luxury. The emotional weight of my situation intensifies as I recall the day I was discharged from the hospital. It was my grandson who came to pick me up, a figure who offered me comfort amid the chaos of my health problems. However, my daughter also faces her own struggle. She feels overwhelmed by the constant pressure from her husband and cannot ask for help, which makes me feel more alone than ever. Although she is already retired, the responsibilities around her only continue to grow. She is trapped in the routine of preparing meals and taking care of her husband, leaving her no freedom to fully enjoy her life. At first, when I returned home, I relied on delivery services for my meals. As I navigated this new stage with some uncertainty, I experienced a mix of gratitude and frustration as my grandson placed the orders for me, since I had difficulty with technology. Each time, I transferred him €8, and when I had no more, I timidly asked him to make another order. To facilitate the deliveries, I left the front door open, allowing the delivery person to enter without trouble and bring me the meals, which became a true relief for me. My grandson would come from time to help me with small tasks, like emptying the bathroom, assisting with my bath, or taking out the trash. However, over time, I began to notice his growing frustration. His words hurt me when he mentioned that he barely had time for himself and feared that his girlfriend would leave him if she found out what he felt about the burden I represented. It was a painful moment, but deep down, I knew he was right. I understood that asking him to continue taking care of me indefinitely was not a sustainable solution. He has his own life, filled with dates and the hope of starting a family. I never wanted to be an obstacle to him, and it hurt deeply to think that my needs were affecting his well-being and happiness. The harsh truth is that older adults, like me, often face difficulties in covering the high costs of the services we need as we age. Without adequate financial support, the prices of retirement homes start at least at €400, an amount that my limited pension can't even come close to covering. Hiring a home caregiver is even more expensive, making this option entirely out of reach for us. After many sleepless nights, reflecting on alternatives, I finally found a possible solution, an approach that seemed to fit perfectly with my needs without compromising my scarce resources. Finding this method gave me a great sense of relief, providing me with a peace and security I hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time in years, I was able to rest peacefully, my worries eased, as I began to visualize a more promising future. The next day, the long-awaited weekend finally arrived, a period that promised rest and relief from the daily hustle. As the soft morning light streamed through the curtains, something stirred in my chest, a desire to reach out to my grandson. Without thinking, I grabbed the phone and called him. My voice, filled with emotion, asked him to come as soon as possible. Feeling convinced that our conversation would be crucial and transformative, he hesitated for a moment, mentioning that he had urgent matters to attend to. However, the intensity in my voice motivated him to hurry, which gave me a great sense of relief. When he arrived, I invited him to sit beside my bed, a place that felt like the ideal setting for the deep conversation we were about to have. With my heart racing, I presented him with two alternatives. The decision weighed heavily on my mind. The first alternative was to sell our house, the home that was filled with memories and affection, and use the money to enter a retirement home where I would spend my final years in a place devoid of family warmth. Just thinking about that lonely life froze my heart. The second option, on the other hand, sparked a spark of hope: transfer the ownership of the house to him. In return, I asked him to commit to living with me, perhaps getting married, and even starting a family under the same roof. I shared my modest savings, but enough, of €800, which could contribute to the household expenses. My desire to live together didn't come from a need for attention, but from a deeper understanding of the difficulties we face. I realized it was unrealistic to expect a young person in their 20s to take on the responsibility of caring for an older person struggling to maintain their independence. It is often said that even biological children can feel overwhelmed by the task of caring for aging parents until the end of their days. Imagine how difficult it would be for a grandchild from a different generation. The weight of that realization settled in my heart. To ease the burden, I thought about hiring a part-time assistant who could take care of the more demanding tasks, like cooking and laundry, simple but essential chores that could be managed with an affordable cost of €140 per month. My pension of €250 would be enough to cover these expenses without difficulty. What comforted me the most about living with my grandson, I thought, was the occasional support he could offer me, helping me maintain my dignity when I felt vulnerable. For someone like me, who can no longer lead a completely independent life, the idea of staying home alone without assistance in case of an emergency was a deep fear. With great happiness, my grandson embraced the idea enthusiastically. He said that living with me would be a real relief since he often had problems living with his father's strong personality. His attitude filled me with tenderness and reinforced my confidence that this decision would bring joy and well-being into our lives. Additionally, it reassured me to know that my home was large enough to accommodate an expanding family, with plenty of space, even if he were to marry and start his own family. The next day, my grandson returned with a caregiver he had found through an agency, and I felt at ease knowing he would pay her a monthly salary of €150. Her workday would start every morning at 9, taking care of house cleaning, washing my clothes, and cooking lunch before leaving in the afternoon. Upon returning in the evening, I would handle dinner preparation and cleaning, ensuring my home remained a refuge of warmth and care. With this new arrangement, I experienced profound peace, knowing I could rely on my grandson and the caregiver to create an environment where affection and support could thrive, enriching our lives in this beautiful chapter we were beginning together. I've been giving the caregiver €60 monthly for food, ensuring any surplus or deficit is handled separately. This system has worked very well for me. In fact, the caregiver usually gives me back some euros at the end of each month, as I generally only eat 2 meals a day and have never been fond of meats or sides. With my simple eating habits, €70 have been more than enough to cover my needs. Today, I am fortunate to share my home with my grandson, bringing a great deal of warmth and happiness to my daily routine. As we have been improving the house, it has become a much more welcoming place for everyone. What fills me with immense happiness is seeing the harmonious relationship between the caregiver and my grandchildren. This has strengthened the sense of family unity that I value so much. It gives me great satisfaction to see how our connections have strengthened, creating an environment filled with love and mutual support. I am truly happy and at peace with the lifestyle I have managed to build, thanks to careful planning. I am living a peaceful old age, with reduced expenses. The best part is that I can save more than 60% of my monthly pension. This sense of financial stability is truly comforting. I am convinced that older adults, even those without a strong financial foundation, can find ways to organize their lives to meet their needs, as long as they make an effort to seek alternatives. Every elderly person has the right to enjoy a comfortable life and face the final stage peacefully and without pain. Human nature has a pragmatic and sometimes selfish side. It's sad to see how even the strongest bonds, like those between siblings, can be fractured by the tensions of life. This truth underscores the need for support networks, especially for the elderly, to prevent unnecessary suffering and complications. Despite the love of children, it's crucial for older adults to have an emergency fund. The importance of this fund cannot be overstated. Even a modest sum can offer relief in difficult times, providing a sense of stability when everything else seems out of control. There comes a point in life when the importance of financial backing becomes impossible to ignore. Sometimes, a bank transfer is enough to resolve multiple issues, reducing stress and worries. Although we long to receive love and dedication without reservation from our children, we must also be aware of the difficulties they face. Demanding from them without considering their own challenges can create tensions and feelings of resentment. In the end, life is about evolution and learning. No matter how old we are or how self-sufficient we are, maintaining an optimistic attitude and seeking peace of mind allows us to be the best version of ourselves. Each day brings new possibilities for growth, relationships, and happiness, even in our later years. I'm grateful that you're joining me on this reflective journey as we examine the value of financial planning, family relationships, and the right to enjoy our years in well-being. At the end, I invite you to think about the lessons we've shared today. What has impacted you the most? I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave your most important reflection in the comments below. If this video has been helpful to you, we would greatly appreciate it if you left a comment, liked it, shared it, and subscribed to our channel. Your support is essential for us to continue offering content that can truly make a positive impact on people's lives. Thank you for being part of our community.